At social events and school drop-off, when I tell people I'm a parasite expert, they're often surprised, grossed out, or confused. Then when I explain that I focus on diseases of amphibians, I often lose people completely. Who cares about frogs and toads enough to make it a whole career? Well, I do. And in the next 90 seconds, I'm going to convince you that you should care too. Did you know that some toads can live more than 20 years in the wild? That's longer than most dogs, cats, goats, and sheep. Toads have full lives, just like us. Some tropical frogs spend their entire lives up in treetop canopies. They're cute, they're handsome, they're charming, they're athletic, they're nice to have around. They eat insects and reduce the spread of insect-borne diseases. They can be very dangerous. Many toads have glands that produce toxins to defend themselves against predators. In Colombia, the Chaco tribe used to collect poison from the skin of frogs and then dip arrows and darts in the poison. In some frog species, it's the male who cares for their young. So progressive. And perhaps most interestingly, in the 1940s through the 1960s, frogs were one of our most reliable human pregnancy tests. A doctor would give a female frog a sample of a woman's urine, and if the frog laid eggs, the woman is pregnant. Fascinating. All right, so we can all agree that amphibians are the coolest. Now for the bad news. Right now, around the world, amphibians are dying at insanely high rates. There are many reasons for this. They are what I call the usual suspects: habitat loss, invasive species, climate change, pollution. But along with those things, a major driver of amphibian decline is the fungal pathogens Batrachochytrium dendrobatidis and Batrachochytrium salamandrivorans, or BD and B-Sal for short. These fungi cause a disease, chytridiomycosis, in amphibians that starts when these microscopic fungi attach to their skin. Now here's what's really mind-blowing about this disease. You probably remember from high school biology that there are 5 types of vertebrate animals on the earth: mammals, birds, fish, reptiles, and amphibians. These are big groups of animals. Worldwide, there are 6,000 species of mammals, 9,000 species of birds, and 7,000 species of amphibians. Perhaps you didn't realize that amphibian diversity is on par with those more well-known mammals and birds. 40% of all amphibians are threatened with extinction. This one type of fungal disease is linked to the extinction or decline of more than 500 species, which is far more than any other known infectious disease. Imagine if COVID-19 killed not only people, but all kinds of mammals: squirrels, foxes, moose, elephant, tigers, giraffes, sloths, and whales. That's the size and scale of this one single disease. It's crazy. From what we know, these fungi originated in Asia and spread around the world through human activities such as the pet trade, aquaculture, and research. In the 1980s and 90s, we began to see the first reports of massive amphibian crashes in different parts of the world: Australia, Costa Rica, and Colorado. The BD pathogen was discovered and formally identified in 1998 from an amphibian that died of a mysterious skin disease in a zoo. BD is a microscopic fungi that can swim through the water, penetrate into an amphibian's skin, and replicate itself. Eventually, the infection will destroy their skin. Skin is a critical organ for toads and amphibians. It controls the water and electrolyte balance in an amphibian's body. The entire surface of a frog or toad is a mucosal surface, kind of like the inside of a human mouth or nose. Imagine if your mouth was just exposed to the elements for all the time, or if your entire body were covered in skin that was like your mouth. You'd be pretty vulnerable too. Plus, what makes amphibians unique is that they're the only vertebrate that does a full, true metamorphosis. They start as an egg. A tadpole hatches from the egg with gills and a tail fin. They begin to grow their legs, their tail shrinks, they shed their skin and swap gills for lungs. Then small metamorphic frogs or toads grow into adults. During that metamorphosis, an amphibian's skin is particularly vulnerable. It's easy for the fungus to take hold and kill entire populations. In addition to all the reasons we discussed before, like toads being helpful and handsome, there's one big reason why we need to protect amphibians from this fungal disease. They're at a critical position in the ecosystem. They eat insects, so when amphibians die off, we can see an increase in insects. This can be bad because insects spread diseases. West Nile virus, dengue fever, and malaria are all spread by insects. Some insects are also crop pests. And amphibians themselves are food for bigger animals. All kinds of birds, mammals, and reptiles depend on amphibians as prey and a food source that those animals can suffer declines when amphibians become scarce. Amphibians are critical to the health of our world. We must protect them. If you talk to anyone in my field, they'll tell you just how dire this situation is. To have a shot at making an impact to stem the effects of this pandemic on amphibians, scientists are working to discover a variety of solutions. Because amphibians are so diverse, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. Up until now, the best way to protect amphibians has been to grab some individuals from the wild, keep them in a captive assurance colony, try to breed them, and possibly reintroduce them into the wild. And it's not a sure thing that it'll work. In captivity, there are treatments that you can give amphibians in antifungal medicine, but the treatment is pretty harsh. You have to soak them in a bath for 10 days in a row. We don't have a safe, sustainable, scalable solution, and these animals are dying off incredibly fast. In the wild, some researchers have tried modifying habitat to be less friendly to the fungus, such as changing the water salinity or increasing sunlight, but these things are not feasible in many habitats. That's where my research comes in. I moved to Colorado 15 years ago, and I became interested in boreal toads in the Rocky Mountains. There used to be boreal toads all over the high alpine lakes and streams of the Colorado Rockies. These animals are adapted to live at high elevation. Now, many of those populations are gone, and only a handful remain, mostly because of the BD pathogen. Just as this species piqued my interest, I read a research article by a colleague who found that a certain bacteria found naturally on salamander skin could repel BD. So then I wondered what kind of bacteria live on boreal toads and whether any of them could repel BD. Sure enough, we found some. Next, we tried an experiment in the lab where we treated boreal toads with these BD-repelling bacteria and then challenged them with the BD pathogen. We tried several different kinds, and the bacteria that worked the best reduced BD mortality by 40%. This hero bacteria is called Xanthinobacterium lividum, or JLiv for short. And it grows a lovely purple color when you grow it in a petri dish. So when we pour it on our boreal toads, we nicknamed the project Purple Rain, in honor, of course, of the late great Prince. Then it was time to test this out in the field in a wild boreal toad population. We did our first pilot back in 2016. Here's how it works. We collaborate a lot with the biologists at the Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and we've been monitoring a boreal toad site near Buena Vista every year. BD had turned up there recently, and everyone has been concerned because it has been a great breeding site for many years. We stay in close communication with the state biologists to figure out when the toads are developing from eggs into tadpoles. We drive and then hike in with all our supplies. We capture tadpoles in the pond. We collect samples to take back to the lab and see how much of the fungal pathogen is on them and what their natural skin microbiome looks like. We put the tadpoles in a toad hotel, which is a plastic tub with some water from their pond, and we make them comfy, and then we wait for them to begin metamorphosis. We add the probiotics, the Purple Rain, which is a JLiv strain that is native to them in their site, and then we collect some samples again. We wait 2 weeks, monitor how they're doing with the treatment, and collect a few more samples. Then we release them back to their habitat to go be happy toads. We visit the site a few times after that to check on them and collect a few more samples. So far, our results show that the JLiv probiotic treatment can stay on them for a pretty long time. And our JLiv treated toads had lower BD infections compared to untreated toads. So this is very promising. And we've learned a lot along the way. One challenge with this work is that it's pretty hard to time it perfectly. These are remote mountain locations that are out of cell phone range, so it takes a team of toad surveyors to check on their developmental timing. For the probiotic to work best, we have to align it perfectly with the toad's most vulnerable stage. At first, we didn't even know exactly when that vulnerable stage was. It's all a part of what we learned in doing this research. The first year we tried this, it worked. The second year, we were too late. The third year, it worked again. It's hard to track our results long term. Once these toads become adults, they leave the pond and scatter into the forest. It's hard to track them and see how effective a particular treatment was. Finally, it's very labor-intensive and therefore hard to scale up. In our first year, we only treated 50 toads. In our second year, 200 toads. By our third year, 3,000 toads. But in a good breeding year, there can be many thousands in the same pond. Could we just put the probiotics directly into the pond? That's what we're working on currently. A PhD student in my lab, Tim Corpita, has been dedicating his dissertation work to learn about how to adapt probiotic treatments to wild boreal toad populations. We're a long way away from solving this problem, but I'm incredibly optimistic. This research shows that there is hope. Probiotics can work. The key is applying them just at the right stage. Many researchers are developing new and innovative strategies to stem amphibian decline. As they say, it's far better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. And in the meantime, here's what you can do to protect amphibians. First, think twice about getting any exotic pets. Do not support exotic pet stores that sell rare species. Instead, get one that's local. If you live in Minnesota, for example, get a frog or toad that's native to Minnesota. Moving animals around the world is bad for their health, bad for the health of local wildlife populations. If you have an amphibian as a pet, do not release it into the wild. Always rehome amphibians to protect your local wild ecosystem. Support policies that reduce the trade of non-native animals across borders. There are many wildlife diseases out there that have spread because of human activities. And now that we know that is the case, we can prevent further spread of harmful pathogens. And finally, support policies that protect and preserve wild landscapes. We need to set aside a lot more habitat for amphibians to stand a chance. So, on behalf of all the toads out there, the handsome ones, the cute ones, the charming ones, thank you for watching and thank you for your support.